Welcome to Blue Light's Enhanced Contact Tracing Demo, the only solution powered by Blue Fusion Federated Search, patented federated search technology that allows contact tracers to search multiple disparate data sources for PUIs and their contacts. We will show you how intelligence and investigative analytics can drastically reduce the time to trace from an average of 12 to 22 hours down to hours or even minutes. Let's take a look at the solution from the point of view of the contact tracing admin. Upon login, we see the contact tracing dashboard. This can be customized with a variety of tools. In this example, we have a KPI dashboard on case data. There is also a COVID testing site locator, so that if the PUI has symptoms on the call, the admin can advise them of the closest testing site to their location. To add additional items to the dashboard, it's as simple as typing in a website URL. Next, we will go to the COVID contact tracing form. The form is built to CDC guidelines and is the portal to the PUI and contacts database. This is where the admin will enter the PUI's name, address, contact information, and also symptoms and test results, as well as their CDC PUI number, so that the PUI can be identified in the CDC's National Disease Surveillance Database. They can also add a test ID number from a lab, name of the lab, and other pertinent details. Next, the admin will enter all known contacts for a 2-week period. These can be people, places, and/or events. Here you can see that we start with 3, but the admin can easily add an unlimited number of contacts to be traced. Now we see the results of form output as a spreadsheet. We quickly identify that there are gaps in the information that was collected, missing phone numbers, addresses, date of birth. Now let's log into the contact tracing analyst view. As we log into Blue Fusion, we see a notification screen. This identified to the analyst that they have a new contact or contacts to trace, or new information on a PUI they are investigating. If you remember from the form, we started with the PUI Bruce Parkman and his 3 reported contacts. Now we open a chart that shows a visualization of the information collected on the PUI Bruce Parkman on the intake and contact tracing forms. Now we will run an external search for Bruce Parkman. In this case, we are using Hooster, which gives us instant access to up to 12 databases, including real property, driver's license, criminal, credit bureaus, and open source data. Now we see the results of that search. Items in the bottom right are what we started with. The items in the upper left, we see new information populated, including possible additional family members, addresses, phone numbers, and/or related parties or events. In this case, we see what appears to be the PUI's wife and stepchildren. We are now going to isolate one of the 4 additional persons and perform a search on what appears to be the PUI's wife. Now we see the results of the Hooster search on identified person Perry. She is identified by a blue box on the chart. The data to the left of the blue box is Bruce Parkman's data that includes Perry in the previous data. The data to the right of the blue box, Perry, is the new data on Perry from the search. Now we would like to contact Ed Boggs. but no phone number was input into the contact form. So let's repeat the search process and see if we can get his phone number. And just like that, we have Ed's phone number. Did you see that? Let me show you that again. With one click, you now have the contact's phone number, so he can be called back by a contact tracer. No need to call the PUI or wait for the PUI to call you back with the number. Now let's use the 3D mapping plugin, Google Earth, to verify that the reported addresses are not communal or senior living environments. As we can see, the PUI's home is a single-family dwelling. As are the homes of his reported contacts. But if this was a college dorm or an assisted living or retirement community, we would immediately see that. We have focused on the people. Now let's take a look at the events over the 2-week period by creating a timeline. Here we see the 14-day activity collected by interview in an association chart. Now we see the same data in a timeline view, where you can more easily review dates and times. Now we will perform a search on any other known persons who also reported being at these events. Now we see the results. We select the events and add the contacts related to them. Charting PUI events and persons involved. Now let's look at them in a timeline view, isolating persons of interest for new contact list. Now let's isolate one person of interest to identify what events they have in common. Here is Charles Izzo. We see that Charles appears to be connected. Now let's look at the same information on a timeline chart. Here we see Charles again. Now we see the relationship much easier using timeline view. Now we will perform a search on any other known persons who also reported being at these events. Now we see the results. We select the events and add the contacts related to them. Now we have a contact list from the 2 weeks of events. Now we'll run this list against Hooster so that we can obtain all of the relevant contact information for these persons of interest. Now, if we want to identify any hidden connections or things in common between the contacts, we can simply select 3 or more, and with a single click, we instantly see how these PUIs are related, all through our original PUI, Bruce Parkman. We see he is what the other 2 have in common, which can help with determining how and where outbreaks or hotspots start. Now let's filter and export the new list of PUIs gathered from our investigation. As you can see, we can now filter the results by tested or not tested, by positive or negative or unknown. We can also filter by symptoms: cough, severe fever, headache. Well, you get the idea. Now we are ready to highlight and export the list of new PUIs to be traced, so that the contact tracing admin can start the process again. Simply highlight the contacts and export them to Excel. And in less than 8 minutes, we were able to identify over 22 possible contacts, verify addresses, and obtain missing phone numbers, as well as verify that the PUI is not living in a communal living environment. We also verified that Mr. Parkman didn't tell us about his additional family members. We even obtained the phone number he could not remember of one of his contacts. all without calling a single person. This is the power of investigative intelligence and analytics, with federated search capabilities. This changes everything. Blue Light, the I2 experts.